The Issues of Standardized Tests by Starr, Kathleen, and Courtney.
In 1983, the Presidential Commission report, A Nation at Risk, stated that America was no longer dominated economically due to the fact that its schools and education systems were inferior. Workers in other countries were better educated and received better training.
It was assumed that by taking standardized tests more seriously, it could better predict how well the nation's education system was doing. Made simple, it was expected that higher test scores would lead to smarter workers and thereafter produce a growing economy. Ever since then, standardized testing has been a huge national concern.
Obama's presidency led to a promise to upgrade standardized testing from a multiple-choice-centered test into a much more comprehensive assessment. An example of this is to give students articles from a newspaper and then have them write an essay expressing their opinion on this topic. Obama's goals for these new standardized tests is that they will be more consistent and competitive with global education, which, as we mentioned before, was part of the reason for the implementation of standardized testing in the past.
The 21st century has brought about a myriad of standardized tests that students have been required to take over their educational career.
These tests include No Child Left Behind mandated tests for grades 3 through 12, district exams assessed by local schools, exit exams, SAT and ACT exams, and this is only a small chunk.
The advocates of standardized testing argue that it's the best way to assess students and schools' performance. However, critics say the tests are partial to the white middle class. The tests do not take into account the culturally diverse backgrounds that are found in America today. Standardized testing can be both beneficial and detrimental towards schools, teachers, and students.
It is said that standardized testing has its advantages. It helps identify the students who have special needs and also makes certain the funds that are being allotted to the schools are being used efficiently.
There are many cons to standardized testing for schools. Under NCLB, it allows every state to create their own standards of proficiency. This then creates data that is unreliable and not a real indicator as to whether or not the students are making progress.
With so much pressure to do well, some states lower their standards to avoid failure. Also, the students' scores may not be a true representation of their knowledge. In no way can the test measure accurately how well the students have mastered the subject.
One cannot really tell if the outcomes from the standardized test are based on the student's knowledge and mastery of a subject, or if it is just the students memorizing the information to succeed on the test. Schools that teach to the test will be rewarded regardless of whether or not that school is a low-quality school or high-quality school. It seems as if schools are being punished for teaching content outside of what is on the test and having the students obtain knowledge rather than memorizing information.
Also, if schools were unable to meet the NCLB requirements for a fixed amount of years, their funds were cut back, and after so long, the schools were either shut down or reformed into charter schools.
No Child Left Behind had good intentions behind the widespread implementation of standardized testing. It was expected to bring about a positive change for teachers. Their purpose was to weed out the inefficient teachers, but in return produced many negative consequences.
This gave reason for principals and administrators to cut teachers' salary and other privileges based on how the students did on the standardized test.
Teachers began to fear failure and possibly losing their jobs or positions. One example of this was when Philadelphia decided to associate teachers' salaries and any bonuses to the scores on their students' standardized tests. Eventually, it became a trend, and soon many schools began to rely on standardized test scores to evaluate the teachers. This led to teachers being pressured to teach to the test in order to keep their salary and in some cases to keep their jobs.
Due to these pressures, many aspects of teaching instructions have been changed from the creative methods used in the past. Teachers have been forced to abandon creativity in classrooms. Schools have become almost like a factory. Teachers are now like machines, having to administer already written tests and produce students with high test scores. The teachers no longer can be creative in their lessons because of these expectations placed on the students to achieve high test scores.
Teachers are now teaching to the test or reading from scripts. It is creating a teacher-centered environment instead of a student-centered environment.
According to a teacher, she said, "The test really shapes the way I run the class. I have to cut out certain cooperative activities because they're time-consuming. It definitely affects my teaching." Evidence has shown that standardized testing is one of the reasons school districts have taken out parts of the curriculum in its schools. 71% of districts have reported having to cut out at least one subject to make more time for teaching information on the tests.
In the end, it seems to negatively affect the relationship between the teachers and the students. According to AW, it is said to dehumanize the relationship because the creativity is lost, which leads to curiosity in the classroom being lost.
It has become a lose-lose situation for teachers. Either they fight against the test and risk getting fired, or they teach to the test and lose their sense of creativity and what it means to be a teacher.
With the implementation of standardized testing, the main focus has been preparing for the test. This often overlooks the students' needs in exchange for success on the test. In an article by Phillips, she states, students as young as 3rd grade are fearful of not passing the standardized tests.
Even though academic success may be important, there should also be an equal focus on these young children's emotional and personal growth for succeeding in life. This is one of the biggest cons of standardized testing. We are making a society of children who are stunted in their ability to grow as a complete person and instead turning them into individuals who are trained to just focus on performance and not their emotional identities.
A large reason for this stunting of emotional growth is due to the fact that the arts have been taken out of the curriculum, so that strictly academic content is being taught in schools today. The arts are an important aspect in creating individuals who are well-rounded educationally and psychologically.
The psychological impact of having so much pressure on students at such a young age goes even further beyond their growth as individuals. It also causes students to have many problems with their self-esteem. In a study done by Laura Lee Kearns, she asked youth who had failed a standardized test how they felt about it.
Kearns stated that students were shocked that they did not do well on tests, which led to disappointment. One child said, "I thought I was going to do good." Many students began to question their academic ability despite doing well in school. Another child said, "It's degrading knowing that I didn't pass. I'm going to get even more stressed out," said another student, and many others agreed.
Non-English speakers make up a sizable percentage of classrooms in America today, and these standardized tests are not taking into account the diversity of the nation. One of the biggest impacts on the non-English speakers is the tracking that comes along with low test scores.
There are many negative consequences that go along with it. The students get bored, they fall further behind in school, and it often leads to them dropping out. This presents a very serious issue that needs to be addressed due to the fact that non-English speakers represent so much of our population in the United States. Unfortunately, this testing is not going away in the near future.
This in turn can lead to many unfortunate consequences that will affect everyone, not just the educational system in the future.
Some say that a pro of standardized testing is helping the students prepare for the workforce. In today's job market, entry into a position often comes along with your performance on the standardized tests they provide. With students having so much practice in test-taking skills, their achievement on this may be higher than those candidates who have not had the same preparation. This gives them a greater advantage of receiving the job over someone else.
Overall, the intentions behind standardized testing were good, but from our research, we believe the cons that developed seem to outweigh the pros. Hopefully in the future, changes will be made and we can improve our methods of measuring the schools, the teachers, and the students' achievements.